Welcome to It Isn't Supposed to Be That Hard. My name is John Duncan. Joining me today is my guest, Liam.
Hi, pleasure to meet you.
So, Liam, let's get started with who you are and why you're here. What's your background in PE and those kinds of fields, right? PE, VC, and what made you want to talk to me today?
Sure, yeah, no, thanks for having me. To put it simple, I would say most of my professional life has been in entrepreneurship. That being said, the parts of my life that haven't have been in VC, especially in innovative funds, innovative strategy, R&D, deep tech. So I think part of the invitation and, it makes sense to be here because it all comes together between startups, VCs, consulting, and innovation.
Yeah, totally agree. Could you elaborate on more of the deep tech? I'm pretty technical, so like I'm just purely curious. What kind of deep tech?
Sure. So as of now, I work with an innovation consultancy firm in the States called Inspiralia as a third-party business partner. We help deep tech entrepreneurs. So deep tech is, it's a big word. It includes a ton of industries. We focus more so on biotech, quantum, space, clean tech. So it's a quite a, agnostic umbrella in terms of industries. When we say deep tech, we are talking about transformative technologies, be as hardware or software. So things that you would think are more so futuristic, I would say. To give you an example, one of our clients is building out a new age battery, which would allow cars and other things that we use in our daily life to last 3 or 4 times more in battery cycles. We have
Whoa,
another company
is it like
building
gallium
out
nitrate?
they built out their own polymer actually. So that's the thing. With deep
Ooh,
tech and the companies that we work with, they are the creators of the technology, the hardware and the software, most cases. Another big one I'm very excited about, fuel propulsion. They're literally and they have created a compound that now transmits energy into the outer shells of rockets so that rockets now can move through propulsion technology rather than gas or oil in space. So this kind of stuff. Very interesting,
okay.
very deep.
Yeah, is that like ion propulsion?
Yeah, I'm not a physicist
Fair
per
enough.
se.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
but they did build out it's a new material, and we just had a really interesting conversation with the head of physics from Stanford last week, and they really dove in, and I try to catch as much as I can as more of a
Yeah.
finance guy that I am. But yeah, new compounds, new materials, new technologies, and what I do with Inspirelli is I drive the deal flow for investments with VCs and institutional investors for these projects.
Okay. Awesome. So what made you want to talk to me today? What interested you about wanting to talk to someone pretty technical about your ventures?
Right. So I have Inspirali on one side. I'm helping with this VC deal for which I think is very technical and innovative. There's a ton of things you learn every single day. But I also have Spark founders, soon to be Spark business, soon to come. We're ramping up.
Congrats.
We're an AI company and we built our own ML from scratch. And we see ourselves as the LinkedIn of the future. I mean, I know that's saying a lot. Hopefully we get there. But what we built out is an AI that matches people for business relationships. So we are now ramping up to HR, investor profiles, company profiles, and so on. And we give a compatibility score based on AI. So we're trying to really break through as to what makes two people compatible in business, right? Through our ML, through learning from scraping and the users that we now have. So that's putting all of that together. Back to your question, I think that's what makes us very interesting is being in the deep tech space, AI space, and fund space. I think this can be an incredible conversation.
I totally agree. That's a lot of our background is actually advising like different PE firms. It's really interesting that you brought up a renewable energy because that's actually how we got our start. We got our start with a PE firm that only invests in renewable energy companies. So, one of the first large projects we did was helping a, neighborhood scale battery company build out these giant batteries and then build battery management systems and alerting systems that FDNY was writing the rules as we're like writing this software for. So you're right. Yeah, it's very serendipitous.
Yeah, no, amazing. Actually, I have serendipity tattooed on my arm. I
No
think,
way.
yeah, it's a big thing for me in life.
That's awesome.
I'll be sure to send the pitch deck over because they are raising, so you can
That's
take a
cool.
look
Yeah.
at the battery company for sure, for sure.
Sure. Yeah. So hot topic, AI, right? Specifically in PE firms, very hot topic. Lots of finance people are very curious about it. I spend a good chunk of my time kind of demystifying a lot of AI stuff. So I want kind of your take as more of the finance side. How are you feeling the impact of these AI tools? Is it overwhelming? Is it exciting? Is it a mix? Is it some third thing? What? What's your take?
At a personal level, very excited. I'm all in. I'm all like, if I'm gonna become a robot and upload my
Let's do
consciousness,
it.
I'm that sort of guy.
Yeah.
I do see it's growing and advancing very, very, very fast. So a lot of people obviously natural reaction is to be scared and to put up barriers. So in-house, right, at the funds that we speak with, the consultancy and my company, as we move towards agentic AI more and more so, and every day you wake up to find something new out there that, could replace a ton of people. I think the ethical question versus business, I think that could be an interesting conversation is, yes, it's very fruitful for the business, right, in terms of efficiency outputs, cost, and everything that we do as a business versus, yeah, we're going to lay off a ton of people. Right, because an agent can do what seven other people could do at half the price, or maybe more. So quite interesting. I've seen it more so on human resources, right? So like very basic stuff. It's replacing a lot of our work in consultancy as well. So presentations, programs, strategy, plans, and even in funds now, I've been seeing people use it for actual trading strategies, which is quite interesting. I also read that I hope this is not fake news, but there's a fund out of Japan where the CEO is already an AI running the company. So that's pretty interesting as well. So all in all, I mean, I'm super pro AI, not scared. I think if it eventually takes us to like all of us as humans having a better life because everything that's hard is being solved by robots or AI, incredible. Right now, I think it's just an adaptation stage because it's so new, right? ChatGPT came out 2023, right? And it feels like a lifetime ago, but it's not even 2 years. I think it was October, if I'm not mistaken. And everything that's happened, right, in 2 years from, hey, could you check this phrase for me or this spelling to everything we're seeing today.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that makes sense. I spend a good amount of time kind of I think with a lot of PE folks, I spend a good amount of time tempering expectations when it comes to AI, right? And I think it's important because I think a lot of people I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how AI works, right? I think there's a lot of people who are under the impression it's more capable than it is, right? Because AI as a field is not the same as an individual AI, right? Like the training set matters, right? So if you have a tool like ChatGPT, which is starting to show emergent capabilities after a certain amount of data, that's awesome. But you also got to keep in mind that a machine learning neural network, whatever, right? That you focus on a data set of just programming or just, you mentioned biotech, of just like, bioinformatics type stuff. Those AIs are going to smoke ChatGPT every time, right? Just really tailoring the data sets has a profound impact. And you can still see emergent capabilities arise out of these data sets. I find that there's a lot of room for nuance. And I wonder what you think about this. How do you feel when you hear people, like the CEO of what was it? Anthropic was talking about how all coders are going to be completely unnecessary in like 2 years. When you hear things like that, what's your like gut check, and then how do you like think through it?
Yeah, it's ambiguous, some the race for AGI and ASI. Some people think it's years, some people think it's months at the exponential rhythm of growth. I think we have to become sort of the controllers, right, as the creators of this technology and just dictate where it's going rather than be scared of its capacities. Back to like in PEs and training the data, there's real world like physical implications as well, right?
Yes.
To train these models, the amount of energy that's consumed is unbelievable, right? So then you see Sam Altman, his second biggest company, hydrogen, right?
Yeah, the SMR company, right?
Right? So where is the energy going to come from? And a lot of the theses around big funds are going towards how, like the backside or the hardware or how to train these algorithms. And yeah, as you said, I think there's very specific ones out there already that will, output much better data or solutions per se, rather than ChatGPT, which is more of an agnostic, LLM
Right.
rather. But at the same time, I mean, I've been playing around with it, and you can now create, video, pictures, music.
Sure, sure.
It's really fast. So it's very interesting. It's something to definitely have like on your site every single day. I try to read as much as I can on what's happening out there, right? Both on the hardware side and then the technology, obviously, and the algorithms and the models that are being presented, especially in tools, going back to the agents, right, within our
Yeah.
company and how we can use those. And on my side, just not being scared. think that's fundamental because it's like with everything. When you're scared, bad things happen, right? You're skiing down a mountain, that nerve kicks in, and that's when you fall and break your leg. So I think we should just be super on top of everything, not being scared, and just have control.
I totally agree about the fear. And I agree about the fear because I think, this is the information era, right? That's the era of history we're in, right? So the antidote to fear is knowledge. So learn. If you're afraid of something, learn about it, talk to people, research it. I also totally agree that, to touch on that like ethical conversation of like, should you build a tool or not? Building tools isn't the problem, right? The problem comes in my opinion, even before the tool is built. When you're in the planning phase for the tool, right? What is the tool's goal? Is the goal really to lay off half your staff? Because in my kind of take on this is that when we're talking about VC, when we're talking about PE, that's rocket fuel. You shouldn't be laying staff off with rocket fuel. You should be using rocket fuel to go to Mars or the moon, right? So building these tools doesn't mean that you then lay off half your staff. It means that, those 7 people who did this one thing now can do 15 times as many processes or procedures with the help of an agent, right? Rather than these people focusing on having to do the manual or the menial task. Instead, now they get to focus on checking and just making sure, looking for accuracy, looking for errors and omissions, right? Which enables them to scale so much faster that, that I think is where we're really going to see the wheat from the chaff get separated in businesses, right? When we see leaders who take these efficiency tools and they try to completely eliminate departments, I think that's a pretty clear sign that that leader isn't aiming for the moon. They're not trying to utilize the rocket fuel that investors are trying to provide.
Right.
The goal is to grow faster and better. The goal is to scale, not scale back. You shouldn't be decreasing your output. You should be increasing your output, right? So I'd like to go back to, I like to use like the plow as an example, right? Humans invent the plow. Do all farmers suddenly become jobless? Like, no. What happens is farmers don't farm an acre or two anymore. Now they farm 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then, GPS powered tractors come around and now they're farming thousands of acres.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to happen. I think the smart businesses that are leveraging this PEVC funding, that are looking for accelerant, are going to take advantage of that accelerant and use these new efficiency tools to scale, not to cut back.
Yeah, I think we're in a great period of unknown and adaptivity. When, it's like the next technology revolution, right? So when the internet came around, it's like, what do we do with this? There was doubts, this is not going to last, and look at us today, right? And around that, I don't think it should ever be, I mean, personal opinion, like it should never be about cutting people off, right? Or laying
Yeah,
people
it
off.
should be about scale.
But at the same time, with your feet on the ground, I mean, trying to understand as a former and current CEO, financials and
Of course.
efficiencies
Of
and
course.
saving money, I can see the duality where it makes sense to say, hey, I have this option over here, which can do what these couple of people can do over here. And maybe, as you said, and maybe you're completely right, it's more short term goals,
Yeah.
right? So the next cash flow or the next quarter or the next results for this year, which is like the layoffs that we saw late 2023, early 24 from the big four, right? It was just to create
But we're still
positive.
seeing them, right?
We're still
Yeah.
saying not at the same level, but I mean it's part of the same thing. So long-term vision is you have to put in this variable and adaptability and see what comes out of it, I guess. And no one really knows when you see the people, the Sam Altmans, the Elon Musks of the world who are behind all these technologies, and their answers to these sort of questions is we don't know. Some things are going faster than we thought. Some things aren't where we would like them to be. So if they don't know, who knows, right? So I see that as, and I'm sort of with you on that in terms of changing to a long-term vision where you could
Yes.
say, hey, if I go more into, creating capacities within my workforce with these new tools, how much further could their output be moving forward versus I now have this tool, so I'm going to save on this, and this for now.
Yes. And I,
And
I think
yeah,
I think we're in the beginnings of seeing that manifest specifically around like software developers, right? Because we had all these tools that came out and that purported to be able to replace developers, right? Like Builder.ai.
yeah, yeah,
And it turns out that it was not capable of doing that, right? They were really just outsourcing it to developers that they were able to underpay,
correct.
right? So I think that is the beginnings of what we're seeing as this correction of expectations. And that's not to say that AI is useless. I don't feel that way.
Uh-uh.
As someone who writes code, my perspective on this is that when I go to write something that's highly repeatable, right? If I'm writing a bunch of like test cases and they're pretty straightforward, it's just time consuming to write all of them. AI coding tools are fantastic. They save me hours. When I go to do something novel, when I go to invent or create some new workflow, that's when it starts to fall apart. So I think that there's a nuance here to be digested. I also feel that we're starting to see that in the market. We're starting to see this kind of correction where at first it was no more coders are needed ever again, fire them all. And we saw all those layoffs. And now we're seeing a lot of those companies change direction and turn around and say, okay, well, maybe we do need some coders, right? And that's kind of, we're seeing this like, hey, maybe these tools aren't replacements, they're enhancements, they're modifiers, they're benefits. Something you mentioned that I totally agree with is I'm also personally a transhumanist. If Neuralink turns out to be amazing, I'll be getting it. I already have chips in my hands that I put in there. So I went to a piercer and for you or for anybody watching this, go to dangerousthings.com and use their search tool. They will find someone who is certified to do this, who will do it in a clean and safe way so you don't get an infection. And it's pretty straightforward. One hand is an NFC chip and the other hand is an RFID chip. So
Wow.
one hand is essentially a work badge and
Uh-huh.
the other one is basically the same thing you put in your dog or your cat, right? But you can use it to do a whole lot of stuff. So I completely agree about the sentiment of being excited about technology and wanting to move it forward. The only spot where I want to push back a little bit is I think a lot of PE and VC have been getting sold this idea that AI is more than what it is. And I think we're starting to see that correction. So I do think it's very useful and I do think it will be transformational in a very positive way. But a concept that I would have agreed with you about ChatGPT or OpenAI being able to achieve like AGI like a year ago. But then
Mhm.
like 3.5 came out and they had to give it Python so it can do math because it can't do math right, and we saw the hallucinations tick up as they increased the data pool. And to me, what that kind of said is we're at the end of seeing new emergent capabilities come out. So I think what we're going to see now is creating tailored and scoped AI is going to be the new like hotness because we've kind of seen via the some of the largest companies in the world, right? Like Microsoft, Nvidia, there's a ceiling with this data, right? When you throw piles and piles and piles of data, literally all of the data humanity has ever generated,
Uh-huh.
right? You get to a point where the emergent capabilities you see come out of it kind of plateau. There's not a lot of new stuff that it is capable of. So I think what we're going to see is making a bot that's really good at this one thing by giving it all a highly tailored. And I like what you were saying there about PE firms focusing on investing in the companies that are trying to build these data sets. Because I think you're absolutely onto something there, right? I think we're going to see more tailored AI come out, but that requires tailoring data sets, which I absolutely agree with you. That's going to be a huge opportunity.
Yeah, at the end of the day, AI, going back to something you said, is all about time, right? And iterations. So the whole conversation is how many more man hours per se can the AI do rather than instead of us doing it, right?
Yes.
Black
Yes.
box model, and it turns out to be millions, billions, trillions, where we could
Yes.
do a couple hundred, right? Because we are human and we sleep and we get tired while the AI doesn't. And funny enough to what you just said, I sort of see a loop where maybe we'll get to the point where the own AI can create
Yeah,
its
definitely.
design, right? Which is where
Yeah,
it's going with those new Google quantum chips, right? The MIMOs or MIMOs, which is kind of crazy. And yeah, I mean,
very
definitely
much.
VC, I think there was a craze for sure. Also aligned with thesis alignment and sense of like, growth versus revenue. So we had like the Ubers of the world a couple years ago, and then during COVID there was a couple of alignments in the VC world where it was like, hey, yeah, these companies are amazing. It doesn't really matter how much they're worth.
Right. Like we
We want them
work.
to make some money, right?
Yeah,
Because like
right.
Uber has had like what one positive quarter and like ever, or something
Yeah,
like that.
something crazy. Yeah.
And it's worth like what, $100 billion, right? So that used to be the thesis: growth, 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 growth. And I think this helps adjust. And yeah, there's definitely ceilings. I mean, we're still ramping up to the revolution of the hardware as well. So at some
Yes.
point, there's going to be a breakthrough where Nvidia or any one of these says, "Hey, here's the new age chips, right? Here's the new hardware." And I think all goes back to electric capacity
Yes.
that we have.
I agree
So
with that.
nuclear, hydrogen, clean energy, whatever it is, we're not there yet, right? So how much can you feed it and how much can it train on and how much can it learn and what's the output? And to your point as well, I think naturally it's going to very specific AI outputs, and that's the agentic version that we're seeing now. Right,
I
so
yes,
agent
very
for
much agree.
this, and I'm going to be a company that trains an AI agent to specifically say this,
Analyze X-rays
yeah,
or yeah.
exactly. And then there's going to be a ton of those. And then as general macro market behavior, we're going to start to see consolidations, right? Purchases, joint ventures until we get to a couple big players in each space.
Yes. And then
And
what you're totally
and
right.
I would also like to add, and this is something that really triggers me, AI as a concept, just the letters AI is thrown out there way too much. Everything is
I
AI
agree.
nowadays. I go to like these mom and pops conferences to try to find like partners or like marketing agencies or whatever it is. AI marketing, right? And all they're doing is like they're using ChatGPT to output a
How
couple of,
do I market?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
Being an AI company where we built out our own ML from scratch, which took months to train from thousands of data points from the internet just to give us a score on what could potentially be a compatible, good business relationship. And then someone's like, AI marketing. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm sorry.
It's
You're
not the
not an
same.
AI company.
Yeah.
So it's
Yes.
everywhere.
Well, I completely agree. And we're seeing a lot of stuff like that, I think, with AI agents, right? Is people will be like, here's this AI agent. It's going to order your pizza for you.
Right.
It's a Selenium script. It's
Yeah.
JavaScript. Someone wrote
Yeah.
some JavaScript that orders a pizza for you. When the
Yeah.
website changes, it's going to break. It's
Exactly.
not AI.
It's not AI. And I think that's gonna be fundamental. And I mean, I'm bringing up a whole other topic here, but how the education system adapts to this era as well. So when I
Totally
was
agree.
more than halfway done through the MBA, ChatGPT came out, right? And it was like this craze because it could now help us with a couple of answers. And let's not call it cheating, but cheating,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
How this business school, i.e. business school, which I went to for the MBA, there started to be conversations on how you adapt. And the whole conversation was like, for younger generations, is it cheating when it's a tool, right? We talked about this early on, and adding on to the person behind the output of the tool. So a lot of people are like, yeah, kids are going to be stupid because they're not going to have to think anymore, right? But maybe we're going to be smarter in different ways and prompting and growing with the intelligence. So I'm very, very intrigued to see what's going to come in the next couple of months, not even years. It's ramping up
Yeah.
like crazy. Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, that is something that I think about a lot. And I think about it a lot from a perspective of like, if you don't use it, you lose it. That being said, I don't use my appendix. You know what I mean? So I agree with you in that there absolutely is this sense of if you don't use it, you lose it, right? But what can we afford to lose? Some things should be jettisoned. Some things we should be able to lose, right? There are some skills that you don't need to carry with you through your whole life. And there are
Right.
some people who do need to have those skills. And, not everybody needs to be, to the beginning of the conversation, not everybody needs to be a Stanford physicist, right?
Right. Right.
We can outsource that to Stanford physicists.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I think, also like the more we train some of these very high level PhDs, I mean, no disrespect to anyone, might be some of the first to be replaced because what you were saying, like if I train a model with all the information that we have on physics to date, which our human brain can't even begin to understand, not even if you're like Neil deGrasse Tyson or whoever you are, and then you start throwing like potential outputs and iterations like, hey, let's evaluate if the gravity equation is right. It's probably going to be an AI with these breakthroughs. I mean, there's not a lot of Einsteins that come along, right?
It's
Ever
true.
so often. And through AI, maybe we might get to a point where we are training it to get to that level. So it's
I think
also
it's
very
possible.
interesting. I think
I
it's
think that's
possible. Yeah.
possible. I
Yeah.
think I think it'll I'd say we disagree a little bit there in that I do think it'll be very helpful to academia. When I think about that, I think about the example with protein folding, where it's helpful to academia in the sense that AI can brute force faster than we can, but it's not helpful in the sense that it is actually like coming up with a new idea. It's not like thinking. It's just testing based on parameters that some PhD puts into it.
Hmm.
But because of that, we've discovered, new forms of proteins that we could synthetically manufacture. It's a big actually leap that contributed towards, I don't know if you heard about this, there's a new DNA treatment that can be used to treat sickle cell. And they recently, like a month ago or so, like cured a kid in New York of sickle cell. And it was because of this folding project that they even thought to create this chemical. It's not because the AI was like creative enough to come up with the chemical, but it's because they put the correct parameters in place, and the smart people came in and gave it the correct data, kept it focused, kept it tailored, and then let it loose to brute force different combinations of chemicals that achieve XYZ goal, and it found it faster than decades of science could.
Yeah, that's going back to the iterations and the time frame, right?
Yes,
Doesn't get
yes.
tired. It's working all the time. It's comparing all the time.
It's also
So
faster. It
we
can do
would have
faster comparisons.
exactly. We would have probably gotten there eventually, but maybe it's
Yeah,
a
in like
thousand
30
years
years.
or 30 or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
We could do it in a couple of weeks just because it's working all the time. And now with the quantum chips coming out, it's gonna get even
Oh,
faster
it's
and
gonna be,
smarter,
yeah,
right? I think it was like 3 trillion iterations per second. Some
something ridiculous.
one of these new chips, they've made six already. It's like one of them has more computing power than all of the computers on Earth put together. The
Yeah,
one chip, right?
yeah. And I wonder actually, kind of to shift topics a little bit here, seeing that kind of leap and seeing this kind of cutting edge performance. I mean, we always see in every field, right? Like cutting edge fashion trickles down to TJ Maxx in 2 years or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Cutting edge science trickles down to like your local doctor in like 3 or 4 years or whatever, right? We see these lag cycles. So I wonder, um, what do you think the non-technical kind of PE firms, VC firms can be doing to incorporate the lessons we're learning at the cutting edge without having to actually adopt, PhDs or whatnot? Using agentic AI as an example, creating real agentic AIs isn't really something that's inside of the scope of what your average PE firm should be doing.
Right.
But there are lessons they could learn from there. And I wonder what you think those lessons are and how you think we can incorporate that.
I think it would be a great idea to, no matter what the thesis is for the fund, to have some sort of investment in AI development and generation. I mean, you're gonna go more horizontal and you're gonna broaden the thesis for sure, but particularly like let's say you're a space investment portfolio fund, have one just for AI for those companies, right?
Yeah. So
On
like
their
research
data.
tools.
Right, because it's all connected, so you own them,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they are your companies, they are your portfolio. So how to find those connections? If for example, my client, Field Propulsion, they're doing these new materials, it'll be really nice to pair them up with a fund that has another company just devoted to AI to enhance and grow these companies, right? And even if it's not technical, I would still do the same. I mean, I think this is more than obvious, but in-house AI, going back
I
to,
am a huge proponent of in-house AI.
yes,
I personally feel, sorry to, but I personally feel that every firm that wants to use an AI should start by self-hosting an LLM.
100%.
And I don't think that because, I don't think that because people should learn about it or try it or experiment it, whatever. I do think that they should do those things. But I think you should start by self-hosting it purely so that you can see how easy it is become. It
Mm-hmm.
is with tools like Docker or Kubernetes and, Olama. I literally 2 weeks ago, I helped someone who has zero background in computer science, very much someone who does not understand this kind of tech, go from absolute zero to a running ChatGPT instance that is entirely local hosted in like 3 hours. It took longer to sign up for the license.
Yes, yes. It's become quite easy, right? To
Yes,
integrate
it's
all of
very
these tools.
accessible.
Even like the normal ChatGPT, I think for like entrepreneurs or companies or funds, like it now automates everything for you, right? And then comes the question like, what am I gonna do? But I mean, if everything is more efficient, if it can like set up meetings and transcribe them and answer your emails, right? And give you your weekly and daily digest, you get to focus and do and I think
What you're
that's
good at.
where I would like to go to like connect all of the conversation is what we have found going back to the company that you were mentioning, the quote. It's everything that they found that does not work or AI for software development is creativity.
Yes.
And AI might never have human creativity, even if it's AGI, right? Because that's what
That's what
makes us
makes us
unique.
special. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yes.
You can't define, I'm not gonna get religious or anything. I'm quite agnostic actually, but like that human
There's still
essence,
something to it.
the
Yeah.
soul, the creativity, right? Where we operate based on things that happen to us and real life experiences and as we learn and as we go. And a lot of the decisions we made as humans are on the fly. They're reactions to our, general circumstance and our environment. And I think that's where it's either going to take a long time or it's never going to happen and will always divide us. Right? That's what makes us humans. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong and maybe some AI will someday say this is what it is and this is how it works,
Maybe.
but it seems too magical, right? And
Yes.
that creativity matters. So if as long as that's there, which it is innate, it's never going to surpass us, and we always have control on that side for software development, for technical aspects, for non-technical aspects, everything around AI as our own
Yeah.
creation, right?
I mean, that's what we're seeing now with the lawsuit that Disney's bringing against Midjourney, right? Part of their filings, they wrote in there, man holding laser sword, and
Mm-hmm.
Midjourney only spit out Star Wars people
Mm-hmm.
because it's not capable of, like, if I ask you or me to imagine a man with a laser sword that has nothing to do with Star Wars,
Right.
like we can do that, right? Maybe we can't draw it. I definitely can't. I need to practice that skill. But a lot of these AI, you're absolutely right. They're incapable of the creativity. That does not mean that they're bad. That does not mean that they're useless. It just means that you have to be mindful about how you apply these tools, right? You wouldn't use a hammer to cut a piece of metal in half. That's just the wrong tool for the job.
Yeah.
So use the right tool for the job. You don't take your Ferrari to go get groceries, right? Maybe in Miami, but in general, right? You want to take, if you're in Miami, you're taking the rolls, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be mindful. You got to use the tool for the job, right? And so I think that's a lot of what this current correction that we're seeing in the market is. I think we're seeing a lot of people realize, when an AI salesman comes up to me and tells me that this AI will solve all of their problems, what they meant to say is it will solve these specific problems, right? And that's fine. That's we're running into those, right? And I agree with you that it's a normal progression of technology. This is just how it goes, right? So along those lines, something that concerns me is the infrastructure that's required for this, not necessarily from a power perspective. Yes, from a power perspective, but more than anything from a cybersecurity perspective. Because what really scares me, particularly with PE and VC firms, is giving access to all of your internal strategy data to an AI that you don't own, which is why I really want people to try self hosting an AI. It is much easier than people may realize. It does not take long at all. There's a million guides out there, right? What scares me, my nightmares are somebody at a PE firm, some analyst puts in a pitch deck into ChatGPT. 3 months later, somebody asks, hey, are there any ongoing deals that are worth at least this much? They get spit out of whatever that analyst put in there. They
Right.
call up the portco or, the prospective portco and they say, hey, I have all of these secret details, so clearly I know about this deal and I'm involved. And the person on the other end of the line goes, yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, that's all secret. And they go, okay, cool. Here's the new bank account routing numbers. Can you go ahead and send the money?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the kind of stuff that scares the crap out of me, which is why I really push for that kind of self-hosting. But then comes up this question of who's going to build this infrastructure, who's going to secure this, and I wonder what your thoughts on this are.
Yeah, first of all, right off the bat, new opportunities for AI as well, development, right? So it's like the pros and the cons, and then technology is always created to solve those issues around ethics and theft and, people doing illegal things. Because in a way, it will become easier, but maybe the development of the tools to prevent it will also be there. That's how I see it. At the same time, we have to reframe it. It gives us headaches because we have to reframe a lot of our like current general circumstance, right? Will privileged information become more democratic and more open? Will the way we make deals not be based off unprivileged information, rather the value of the things that we're pitching, right? There's platforms now on pitch transparency. And they're basically doing what you're saying is the fear is I can share as much info as I have and I can into deals, and we're democratizing, safe rounds for startups where you can now buy as if it were stock through the information that we have through ChatGPT or other sources. So back to the education conversation is like, I think we're gonna have to change so many frameworks of how we work as humans, economic level, human level, democratize process and information for everyone. And hopefully the output is a better world, right? Where if someone is raising, then yeah, let's say it in our current model, the PE that had the privileged information for first investment, yeah, they're not going to be happy about it, but it maybe gives the founder and the company way more opportunities at market, which is at the end of the day what we want to get to in neoliberalistic capitalistic markets, right? Open information and growth. So I think from everything you can sort of tell that I'm very stoic in the sense of like I go with it every single day. I don't build expectations because every day is different. Every day there's something else out there changing the paradigm and how we perceive things and what we can and can't do with AI, new models, new agents, new frameworks. At a personal level, like at an individual level, I would advise everyone to just, educate themselves as much as they can through news, through in-house technologies, adapting as much as they can to it, even if it's like email answering, like whatever you can. Get in the now, get in the how, and run with it. And it'll take you down rabbit holes that sometimes are great, right? In terms of
I agree.
information.
I agree. I would definitely say it's I would my general advice to people when talking about any kind of new tech is play with it, you know. But I think what's most important, I think very important, my cybersecurity brain, would tell me to tell people one of the most important caveats is when you're playing with something, make sure that you have play data.
Yeah.
Don't give it the real stuff yet
Yeah.
until you understand it, then you can give it the real stuff, right? So I'd say, yeah, I would largely agree with that. I would say just be mindful that you're not, you know, be mindful that you are taking risks you're comfortable taking. But
Yeah.
you should absolutely play with these tools, get comfortable with them, feel them out, find them out.
Yeah, it's around like this whole internet privacy concern era as well. People are very much concerned about their privacy,
Yes.
right? It's a hot topic because what is privacy, right? Like, yeah, sure. If you don't want me to see you naked, then I understand, right? But
Yeah, of course.
the internet knows everything about you already. It's not going to change with AI. You don't even realize, right? And sometimes lawsuits come out like, oh, it turns out that X amount of phones were listening to you. Or you accept to the privacy terms of TikTok, which allows it for the microphone to always be on so that the algorithm gets to know you better, right?
Sure.
So what's
Something like that.
privacy? They know us better than we know ourselves. We all live this every day. You open Instagram or TikTok, and the next video about the thing you were just thinking about, which you haven't told anyone, is right in front of you
Yeah. Yeah.
answering your
Right.
next question, right? So it has to do with privacy. Back to your point, because again, that framework's going to change for sure. It's not a private world. I think people should understand that, and they should be more lenient towards just a general pool of information. We're already there. AI isn't really changing the game that much in terms of privacy. It's just maybe how we feel and interact with it, as you
Sure.
said, right?
Yeah.
And how
Yes.
much we plug in with real data, personal data, business data. I don't know. It's gonna be really fun to see how we how that works out.
I totally agree. And I think ultimately the thing that's going to limit people's abilities to take advantage of this new tech is direction and strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people, something I see a lot, and I wonder if you see this too, and we can kind of close out on this.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people adopting the latest and greatest because it is the latest and greatest, not because they have a problem that fits the latest and greatest. And I don't mean playing with. Of course, you should play with new toys, right? Who doesn't love doing that? But actually implementing it into your business is a different story than experimenting. So I wonder, what have you seen around like people trying to actually adopt and implement AI before they even really know what problems they're trying to solve with it?
Yeah, I think it's a marketing sort of battle where whoever has the biggest bucks to get in front of the people, right, as a service or as a product, they're gonna get the most users, even if it's not the smartest or the best thing for the user, right? And you keep getting the same ads from the same big companies because they probably have a ton of budget just for that. And that's how it works. And at the end of the day, there's probably better products that are gonna end up being bought out just for the tech. I don't know what the name was, but a 6 month old AI SaaS company got bought by Wix for $80 million. Because
Wow.
those guys were probably doing something that Wix hadn't figured out, right? And the big guys are like, I'm gonna buy you. It's a buyout world that's
Sure.
going
Sure.
on for forever. So yeah, I mean, not against it, because the ramp up and the growth of these companies that are being presented to you, it has a behind as well. So they're doing something well, obviously, to get more users and more tractions. You could always play around, try it, and leave it. But if they keep growing, that usually means retention. And retention is user base, right? User acquisition, like number of users, number of data, and the things that they have. Yeah, I think you have to go deeper, and maybe more techie guys like yourself, or more like AI business driven guys like myself, to like, to put together and look for agents or specific tools, or I want this for that, and then one feeds the other, and we create, tractions or
Yeah,
loops, whatever it is. It's
it's
fun.
perfect.
But for everyday users, I'm part of this other very cool, very different conversation every month, ran by a HR company, where they just bring in business owners to talk about AI. And I'm the youngest one there. Always, right? The demographic is more like 40, 50, baby boomers sort of. And it's fun and intriguing to see them using AI with the features and the products that you're saying right now. Right? So the ones that they know, and then I'm just like, but you could try
Yeah,
Emergent and
it
play
gets
around.
crazy. Yeah,
I think it can be too much for people as well. And going back to the very beginning of our conversation, I think there's a lot of clash for adopting new technologies, always has and
sure,
always will. And it's
sure,
scary. For Spark, for my business, we're actually seeing how to run A/B testing on ads without talking about AI, even though the value proposition is AI. Because a lot of the response is, why the hell will AI help me match with someone else? I don't trust it. What data do I have to give you? What does AI have to do in this space? Right? So we're still there. I think at least, I mean, again, the benchmark for time with these things is impossible. At least a whole other year or two for adaptation and concentration in terms of what's out there, no, for technologies and offers and services and value.
yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point about the timing. Who knows? It could be it could be next week, or it could be in 3 years. Who
Yeah,
knows?
I think it's going to concentrate. Our
Of course,
human
yeah, definitely.
behavior dictates our economic policy, just
Yeah,
macro. The
it's
tendency,
going to concentrate.
maybe AI is different, but like it always concentrates.
Yes,
And it always goes to a very structured few big players controlling each market. As you said, though, and that's quite interesting, there might be more markets, but within those specific markets, it's going to be few very big players for sure. That's the
totally.
tendency, unless with AI something changes in another framework.
Yeah, good point. Well, thank you for your time. This has been It Isn't Supposed to Be That Hard, where we mostly talk about how tech is not supposed to be that hard. I'm John Duncan. I'm with Equity Tech Consulting. This is my guest, Liam.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for
Yep.
having me, John. Pleasure
Anything
to
you
be
want to
here.
plug right here at the end?
Pay the premium version of ChatGPT and play around. Ask it questions, have it produce things. Ask it what other AIs you can use, automate things. It's not hard at all. My 12-year-old cousin uses it, so I think
Agreed.
everyone can do it. Yeah?
Yeah. All right,
All right.
cool.
Thank you so much. This was
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you.